Hi everyone, I'm Skylar Cameron, and I'm joining you with Essential Opera co-artistic directors Maureen Batt and Erin Bardua and composer Fiona Ryan. EO recently launched their fundraiser, an opportunity to support the next stage of the development of In Her Hands by Fiona Ryan, a reimagining of Macbeth. Starting on Groundhog Day until the middle of the month, you can express however you feel to your dearest friends and closest enemies with a musical greeting. $1 from each musical greeting will also go to the Youth Project in Nova Scotia, making a healthier and happier and safer space for 2S LGBTQIA plus youth. You can find all of the musical greetings available on their Etsy site at www.essentialopera.etsy.com. Okay, so let's jump in. Fiona, let's start with you. Since this really is all about your work, I'm wondering what inspired you to write this work?
So it actually began, the inspiration for it began from a workshop that I did, I think years ago when I was in grad school at U of T. And there was a sort of like small workshop to write a trio for a cappella women's voices because there was an ensemble. I think it was run through sound streams maybe. Yeah, and
Oh,
they had a sort of the artists who were visiting for a concert was the trio. So they also had sort of students kind of shadowing that. And yeah, so I was involved in this writing an a cappella trio workshop. And so I did that, and I don't know why, but for some reason I just decided to pick the opening scene from Macbeth as what I was going to set as an a cappella trio. And then after I had done that, I sort of thinking about it in the many years since, it kind of formed in my head that I was like, yeah, it'd be really cool to like take this and like set the whole thing, but specifically focusing on, because that scene is just the Weird Sisters, to
right.
focusing on specifically the especially the women's voices in it, because so much of the play is just what's happening with the men, and then like at some point you kind of just stop hearing about the women and they wrap it up. So I was like, oh, it would be cool to set this and specifically for treble voices. And it's kind of ended up being evolving a bit from that to also include one of the characters who is male in the play, but is kind of not what today we would say queer coded. But definitely at the time there
Mm,
was an implication that he was a man, but he was like not as masculine as a man typically should be, and that's sort of how he's portrayed in the play. So sort of taking the characters who are women, but also characters who are sort of portrayed as like feminine or whose gender expression maybe doesn't fit the typical masculine role. So yeah, it's grown to incorporate all of those characters as at least as I see them.
I love that you're working on it through the lens of women and their story and their experiences, while also including this gender queer kind of narrative as well. That's awesome. Um, I was wondering, you're bringing those aspects to the work, but is there anything else that you're bringing to your interpretation of Macbeth that feels unique for you or unique even to the process of telling this story?
Yeah. So the things that I think are unique in terms of like operas based on it would be that I probably feel like I am drawing more from like folk music and medieval music
Oh,
um,
cool.
uh, styles. So then a lot of people who had set it to opera before, because I'm really interested in both of those things, as like kind of for a long time since I was a kid or a teenager, been like part of my life. So, so yeah, I'm drawing on those. And then the other thing that I think is maybe a little bit different is just sort of the process and the interaction between composer and performers within this. That I'm specifically writing a lot of these things to leave a lot of room for performers and directors to to add, and music directors to add interpretation into it. So not everything is fully written out and meant to be performed exactly as notated. There are sections where, you know, you're given like a general contour to follow, which is not a totally new thing, but I think in combination with these sort of folk and historical styles in this particular story is maybe a little bit of a different take on it.
Yeah, for sure. It sounds like your stylistic kind of approach and with the collaborative aspect of it, and even perhaps notes that you have in the score that it allows, do you think, for more like playfulness, and more of an ongoing process as well?
Yeah, and kind of more really embracing the fact that like in opera, uh performers are not just singers, they're also acting and they're
Yeah.
portraying characters, and like letting people have that moment to like really get into that, and like especially in certain scenes, like, you know, sound ugly. The sorts of sounds that you don't always, people don't always want to make. Well, some of us do. Like see like there and be like, um yeah, but like to sort of embrace other sounds beyond just the sort of like typical, oh, I'm singing a like bel canto opera aria, um in order to tell the story, to use more of the voice. And yeah, so letting performers really play with their voice and like explore what that can do.
I
Yeah,
also,
definitely.
Skylar, if you don't mind, I wanted to
Go ahead.
let Fiona's comment about, I mean, we're talking about the things that are unique about this process. And of course, this is absolutely like Fiona, like you're talking about the elements of folk music and medieval music and just something that you've been interested in forever, and how that is infused in this opera. But the aspect of collaboration in the way that you want to work with us and in the workshop phase of this, I have not heard of this unless it's like a strictly improv project.
Right.
I have not heard of this happening in this way. It really is quite special.
Yeah, I guess I have like, but yeah, you're right. A lot of the times that it has been that, it's been like ensembles who are kind of in that more in that improv world. But like when we did workshop some of the scenes with like amongst ourselves, but also with students, to like little mini workshops of just a couple of like portions of scenes, um I was like pleasantly surprised with how willing people were to like try things and get into it. And in some ways I encountered less resistance from singers who'd never done it than instrumentalists who hadn't. And it might be because there's like this acting element to it as well, that like and I love I love theatricality in music, so that's why I was drawn to opera in general for composing. But yeah, that I was pleasantly surprised by how there were some people who were like, oh, I'm not really used to doing this kind of thing, but I'm going to try it. And they're like, all right. So I just got like, you know, for example, there's one part where it's just sort of like contours and like suggested rhythms, but not, it's not very specific, and they'll just be like a little comma for a breath or a pause, and you can decide how long it is. You can decide exactly how high or low you are within that contour. You can take it all with a bit of a grain of salt in that particular portion of that scene. And I was like really like happy to hear multiple interpretations, but all of them to my mind fit the score. um but they were all different, and that's kind of like the goal, is to kind of put performers in that, give performers that some elements of like creative agency while still providing the framework of the whole opera and sections that are fully written out. And it also has characterization too, like the characters who have the most freedom musically to improvise and add their own input are the characters who in my mind are the most free in the play, or are in a time in their part of the story where they are the most free. So so like Lady Macbeth doesn't do that as much because she is restricted in where she is in society and who she is and stuff like that. And maybe not until she's sort of getting to the end where she is um sort of breaking down mentally what she's been holding on to and her place in society. Until that's sort of breaking down, she doesn't have those moments in the same way that some of the other characters do right from the start.
Wow, that's so freeing, I think, for everyone in the process. And I think for folks to jump in and be willing to take part in that too, I think it adds to the community aspect of being involved in that process, more than something that has much less freedom than that. Because there's just so many more conversations and more aspects, I guess, to collaboration than usual. And also, the more I hear you talk about the story and your thoughts about the story, really excites me. I'm getting bubbly, feeling bubbly just thinking about excitement and hearing this new work.
Yeah, me too. And I wanted to jump in and reiterate too that I feel like not only were some of the singers who we worked with in the little mini workshops, yes, new to doing this kind of work, but extremely willing to do it. It feels to me like it's something that artists of all kinds have just been craving, is the opportunity to have some input into their own character development and even the vocal development of their character. And the opportunity to work directly with the composer and to really be part of the creation process from the very beginning has been amazing for Maureen and for me. And it was amazing to bring those people in, and it will continue to be amazing when we get to the next phase. But there's both the collaboration and co-creation part of it is something that I think many, especially singing artists, have been craving for a long time. And when you add in the woman focused and the gender queer and queer focused way of looking at this well-known and famous story that, as Fiona said, usually is very much focused on the actions and effects on the men in the story, yet has these amazing, mysterious women and questionable gendered characters in it. I think that's something that people are probably craving too, because there are very few works that focus in that way. There are very, very few operas in particular that focus in that way. They're generally focused on the trials and tribulations of a cis tenor in love. And I'm just so happy that, Fiona, that you're working on this and that we get to work on it with you.
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason that too that went into wanting to write it was just like listening to people in theater and opera talking about, I mean, opera in some degrees less so because there are like pants roles, but like the idea of like people having to always play their gender and their particular type of role that they would usually get cast in, and kind of wanting to break down, I mean, that definitely is an issue in opera, kind of wanting to write something that would allow for some elasticity in some parts, to have room for performers who may not fit things, like, you know, maybe somebody has like a really sweet soprano voice but they just want to play someone evil, or maybe
Fair.
maybe like also to include like non-binary performers who don't always have like a place for them in opera. Yeah, just like having some space to like, yeah, let performers not have to like fit into specific roles that they've been given. And also then it becomes something that you can say, oh yes, I was in this show and I did this. Whereas like I was sort of thinking about how when people perform and they perform something outside of what their usual sort of mark would be as an actor or as an opera singer, that they can't use that on their resume in a certain way. Like you can't say, oh yes, I performed this role, because that doesn't really tell future people too much about it. And in this case, I wanted to write something that like allowed people to be like, yeah, I played this role. If that makes sense.
Oh, totally. And in many ways, you are breaking down um, different binaries, I guess, on multiple levels, really, in this whole process, it sounds like. And I'm wondering, this might be, this is a big question, I will say, but I guess when thinking about like your stylistic approach and thinking about the folksy elements of it, um, what do you think? What traditional opera elements are in it for you? What makes it opera for you? And how do you balance those kinds of traditions and expectations in this style?
Okay. Yes, I mean, I tend to have like a fairly broad definitions of many things,
Yeah.
musically speaking. But I do think that this does fit within the particular, like within the world of opera. Well, for one thing, it's an opera because I say it's an opera.
Well, yeah, exactly. There's that. That's the answer. It.
Like,
Done.
I could say it's a musical and it's a musical, but I'm saying it's an opera.
Yeah.
So it partly has to do with like who you're working with as well. And I'm working with Essential Opera, so opera. But also, and I'm glad to be working with them. But also, like, it does still draw from that, some of those traditions, and it's kind of almost expanding it to take in more than sort of what I think what many people see and think of as opera, like a really specific time and place, or times and places. Not everybody is even that broad, but I like to sort of expand on that a little bit and draw in some music that may not always fit in that, but that certainly has. Like, there's plenty of 20th and 21st century operas that do draw from folk and traditional music. Like I've definitely heard arias from several that you can hear that influence in them. So that's not, to me, that's not so unusual. And even in the 19th century, with like a lot of the sort of 19th century romantic nationalism kind of thing, a lot of them were drawing on folk music too. Pros and cons to that whole movement. I don't want to be
Whole
doing it the
other
exact same
convo.
way, but certainly, like, that element of things is not that unusual. And I think that's been, and I mean, even earlier, like, you have scenes in like Mozart operas where they're like, it's the townspeople or the whoever are doing like their sort of more rustic servant, like country dance kind of thing going on. So yeah, there's that element I don't think is unusual. And I think that's been a part of drawing from what is popular, what is sort of folk and popular music. It has been in opera to some degree over the years from the start. In terms of like earlier forms of music, maybe not as much, but I still think like there's some, to different degrees. But yeah, partly it's opera because I say it's an opera, but also because I'm working with an opera company and opera singers, and taking voices who've been trained in a certain way. It's going to sound different than if I had a bunch of people who came in from like a pop singing world. But I still think you could do that and say this is an opera, because you're telling a story through music. There's music going on throughout the whole thing, and yeah, it's intention as well, of like,
Yeah.
this to be an opera, and knowing the traditions that you're using, whether you're following them or subverting them, and that if you're taking those specifically from opera rather than from another genre like musical theater. Like, when I'm playing with these things, I'm thinking about playing with opera cliches versus musical theater cliches. So I think that kind of really makes a difference too.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's making me think. Your explanations and your process is making me think about the experimental music scene. I'm in Toronto right now, and that's very much a thing I've been kind of slowly creeping my way into, and and this whole thing of subverting things and having a more malleable DIY process, and exploring different genres and styles and what are they and how can we push the limits within those. So it's really exciting to me because it's just something that I'm very much personally interested in. Um, and yeah, it sounds like also I'm a queer person, and I think a lot about queer process and queering processes, and then there's also something about that to me that is very, I don't know, just I guess queer in my own way, and how I think I would go about it if I were involved in the project, I think. Um, yeah, that was a bit
Yeah.
of a cluster of thoughts, but
I thought it was great.
it's
I would maybe throw out the word non-normative.
yes, that's it. Non-normative
Just, yeah,
is it.
breaking down the norms and structures that aren't serving us, maybe.
Mm,
Yeah,
exactly.
that kind of really fits with the whole idea of it. And I mean, I was thinking about like people's freedom or lack of freedom and inclusion or exclusion from society in relation to gender. And like if that doesn't relate to to like queerness and like ideas of non-normativity, I don't know.
What
But
does?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, really so. Yeah. Yeah, it's just I think it is something that, you know, I can't speak for all singers. I can't speak for all, you know, people that fit into non-normative boxes, but I think there's a fair amount of us that are thirsty for something like this.
Yeah.
Thirsty as audience members and thirsty as musicians to partake in this kind of project. So, yeah, kudos to you. This sounds like an amazing process. I'm so excited to keep hearing more about this, truly.
Thanks.
This is a great segue into us getting to talk more about the fundraiser itself for the next phase, which is a workshop phase, because this project is not just hand us the score and invite the composer to an afternoon of a workshop and then we're good to go. We're going to get production.
Come see the dress.
Yeah, this is obviously,
Maybe we'll make one note change before
yeah,
opening. Yeah, no, we
clearly
have to
a
have a lot
process.
more involvement from us and from Fiona, and time to work with artists and time to explore options in order to pull this piece together the way we really want to. So we are going to be holding this workshop, a more official workshop phase in the fall. I'm going to mute myself because my cat is screaming and someone else can talk.
And like kind of the difference between this and what so I said before, we sort of took some scenes and portions of scenes, but like literally it was just that selected few scenes or parts of scenes that we kind of really did a preliminary singing through of, and like kind of experiment with doing them a few different ways and see what things were working and not, but definitely not even close to being able to kind of go through any semblance of an entire the entire opera, which is what we're hoping to do in this next stage.
Oh, that's so exciting. Can you tell me more, maybe Maureen can jump in, about the workshop process? Like what does that entail? What happens? What's being workshopped? Yeah, just tell me more.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of factors that will determine that in terms of funding, which determines how many days and time we have and how many people involved. But
Of course.
our ideal version is that we have like a full week to bring in all of the people so that we're not doubling up on tasks, but one person to a part and one person to the instrument that they're playing,
Mm.
and that we have time with Fiona the whole, like every day, all day long, if that's what we want, to go through and really collaboratively work through the material.
Mm.
And then with the goal at the end of actually having a ticketed to the audience workshop performance of the entire work.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
a lot to go through, but like once you're there, I know that people are going to be so eager, and ready to see this work.
And we'll
And
be encouraging artists to give feedback to us and to Fiona during that process. It's probably going to go through some changes, both during that process and following it. There's also going to be an element of audience collaboration, audience consultation on how things came across, on pacing and things like that you really can't tell while you're in the creation and rehearsal process until you knit it all together and then do it all at once in front of people and see what the reaction is like, what the response, the emotional response is like, what it dredges up for people. And that will probably lead to a few more changes before we can consider this a finalized, cut and print, sign your name at the end, slam the binder shut, finished piece of work ready for its actual official premiere. So this is a really important stage. Every stage is important, but we went through a research and creation stage. We went through these mini preliminary workshops. This workshop stage is what turns it into an opera. So this is something that we have planned coming up for fall 2024. Originally, it was actually going to be happening almost now. It was going to be happening really, really soon.
Right.
And we have had some funding not come through that we were really hoping for and counting on, which is frustrating, but it happens to all artists all the time. We've been very lucky so far, both as a company and on this project, to get a lot of stages of it funded. This one hasn't been funded to the same degree. So that's why we're fundraising, because we can't really skip this stage. We really need to do this work. There's no point just hurrying this one along and publishing a draft and saying it's done. This one needs to bake. So hence fundraiser.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how can people stay up to date on the happenings and where you're at in the process, but also support? Because this is a really important work to be supporting, and I'm sure there are a few ways that folks can support.
Absolutely. I mean, we have a newsletter, an email newsletter that people can sign up for on our website or via the link that's in all our social media bios, which I think is a link tree type of thing. So you can click on all the things from there. That's usually the easiest destination, is to find us on Instagram or Facebook or whatever your preferred platform is, and click the old link in bio. Because from there, we don't send out many newsletters. We only send them when there's something really going on. So you will not be inundated or spammed. So that's a great place to find out what's going on in the moment. Right now, you need to go to essentialopera.etsy.com, ETSY. Yes, that is the crafts and vintage stuff store website, because these are DIY musical greetings that we're presenting and offering for people to use at this time of year. It's not specifically Valentine's Day, but that is an excellent use of a song of a musical greeting. Whether you mean it as a standard old, I like you and you are not surprised by this piece of information and you are happy to hear it from me type of song, or do we have a few slightly different offerings as well that people can use for whatever purpose seems right to them, within the bounds of legality. Which I only say because I know as of today, somebody did choose to send one of the less loving selections to a political figure just to make a little statement.
Oh my
So
gosh.
that's fine. Listen, whatever you want to do, you're supporting the arts, you're supporting queer and trans youth, you do you. That's absolutely wonderful. People have sent them to their pets. People are sending them to their siblings and their friends and their roommates. It doesn't have to be romantic love. You know, you do whatever you want with the link once you have it. So Maureen, do you have things that you were going to add, or did you want to do the walkthrough of the shop, or what should we do at this point?
Really could be useful. What do you think, Skylar?
Well, I was just going to ask about the artists behind these greetings and a bit more about that process and what that was like. Yeah.
Yeah. We can do all of that. And we can also use this as a moment to let people know that both Skylar and I have a history of doing singing telegrams in person through our youth. And I have to say that this idea was inspired by the fact that I used to do that. I kind of can't believe that I used to do that, but there we are.
I can believe it.
No, what does it mean?
I don't know. Like two redheads from Nova Scotia. Like, there's a theme here.
There must be a thing. I forgot to have red hair for this meeting, so I just have to apologize to everyone, really, for my tackiness.
How dare you?
Yeah, I don't even know if I could have done singing telegrams in my youth. I don't know if that was an available thing. I guess I would have just had to draw a sign-up sheet and go door to door or something. I did not do that, which will probably surprise all of you.
Well,
or none of you.
We thought that this would be, I am shocked. I'm positively shocked. We thought this would be a fun way, just something different to do as a fundraiser. You know, there's all kinds of ways that artists and organizations raise money, and this just sort of felt like a way that we could be doing something in community with our Essential Opera super fans and faves. So we reached out to a group of people who we thought would not find the request weird.
Yeah, we kind of asked who we felt we could ask.
Fellow
So if
weirdos.
somebody's watching this who wishes they'd been asked, just let us know that you want to be asked to do strange things from time to time. Don't worry, someday we will.
You're still fine. If you want to send us something, this goes until February 15th. Someone's watching us, they want to send us a video. My God, thank you. We would love to get one.
Yeah, we asked a few people, and some of that was to do with maintaining the community of artists that has grown up around Essential Opera, and also new artists that we don't know as well yet, across the country and globe, if you will. Like, I mean, just making sure that it's something that people could participate in without it having to be come on this day to do a show in order to fund doing a show. I've always found the idea of putting on a show in order to do a show very, I don't know, not weird. I don't disapprove or anything. I just don't know how to do it myself. And so this was something other than put on a show that we could do that could be just a very different vibe from let's put on an opera. So that's another thing too. If folks are thinking, well, but I don't want to buy an opera aria for my partner or my dog or what have you, it's not all opera arias. There are a couple of operatic selections for those who just really love what we normally do and the standards. There are some beautiful things like that, but there's really something for everyone. So the variety is kind of unbelievable. So I don't want people to feel like, oh, it's an opera fundraiser, so it's all opera arias. That's not the case. There's a couple you can choose from, but that's about it.
It's really just a reflection of who we are and the people we like to be around, the community in general. Everyone just picked their own vibe, and that's shining through in these pieces. And if you're following us on Facebook and Instagram, you will see that we're going to start spotlighting all of those songs. So if you haven't seen that yet in the Etsy shop with the listings, which we are going to screen share and literally show you that process in a moment, you'll start to see what songs are available and who the artists are who have donated their time and talent to this fundraiser for us.
So that's actually a good sort of thing to point out. We were talking about earlier of like how, you know, opera can draw from other things. A lot of people who are involved in opera also are involved in other music as well. So this is like a good example of that.
Yeah, I was gonna say it sounds like this fundraiser is very much building on the process for this opera creation project. Like it's really infusing those DIY elements and like crossover type styles and genre. So that's so fun. I can't wait to send one to. Who knows? Maybe I'll find a frenemy I could send it to.
Well, I'm so happy that we're having this discussion. I'd love to get into like the nitty
Yeah, let's get into it.
for people who aren't familiar with Etsy, or for people who are familiar with Etsy but just kind of can't conceive of how this works logistically because it's like a virtual musical.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a feeling a lot of people who do shop on Etsy may not have bought a digital product from there before, which is what this is. So, Maureen, I guess you're probably getting set up to screen share with us.
I'm gonna mute
we'll walk you through. Maureen's muting herself, which makes sense. We're gonna walk you through the process of buying a song and what it is you're actually gonna get for your contribution to Essential Opera and the Youth Project.
So why Etsy? Is there any specific reason? I'm just curious.
We kind of went through a process of elimination of ways to do this process, the like buying and selling process. Etsy happens to be a platform I'm familiar with, just because they have things there that I like, crafts and vintage things and stuff like that. So I shop on Etsy a fair bit, and I knew that people sometimes sold, you know, let's say a knitting pattern on Etsy. So that's a digital download. So I knew it was possible to buy something that you download. And because we asked the artists just to participate for this short-term fundraiser, it's not like we're selling a CD that somebody has permanently. These are links. So what you buy when you buy one of our songs as a virtual musical greeting, you're buying a license basically to play the song as many millions of times as you like, to send it to someone from the day you buy it to, we're going to leave them up till February 21. So you have a few weeks to enjoy your song, to send it to somebody and for them to enjoy it. They're not, it's not like when you buy a song, well, I was about to say on iTunes, but that's just aging me because that's not really what people generally do anymore. They tend to just like stream things. So it isn't like that. You're going to get a link to the song and you can play the song as many times as you like directly from there until the 21st, which is why it's sort of more of a seasonal greeting. So here is our shop. Maureen's showing you the Essential Opera shop. You can just search Essential Opera. That seems to work pretty well. Or you can type essentialopera.etsy.com, or you can type what it's showing there, which is etsy.com/shop/essential opera. All of those things will get you to us. Plus, of course, we've linked it in the posts that are from it. I think we're losing Fiona. Thank you, Fiona, for your time. We really, really appreciate you talking with us today. You are the best. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. And in fact, we have a song from Fiona here, as well as a number of others. So you can see we've got a huge selection already. I think we've got about 15 songs up. This is Fiona's. Fiona did the famous Non, je ne regrette rien, her very own wonderful version. So on the shop, you can see the song name and who's singing it, and we've included a still from the video. All of the links go to music videos. And that gives you a bit more of a sense of what the vibe is of the greeting that you're sending, what the experience is going to be like for the person who's receiving it. So you can look through at, the color scheme and how many people are doing it, what instruments are involved. You can see most of that from the little thumbnails. So you get 2 PDF files as a digital download right away when you buy a greeting song. One of them is just instructions kind of explaining what to do just in case you're somebody who doesn't necessarily feel super comfy with downloads and digital purchases and stuff. The other document that you get is a pretty graphic like this with a play button on it. And so it's got the link to your song video embedded right in there. Maureen is going to buy one from herself in order to show us what's going on. And it says over and over, instant download 2 PDFs. So one of those is just instructions for you. The other one is the pretty little graphic, and you'll send that along to whoever it is that you want to send your greeting to. Or maybe it's for you. That's totally fine. I support you buying things for yourself. So there it is in your basket. Get it before it's gone. Maureen, get it before it's gone. There's only 100 in stock. And we certainly can't put up more. So, 3 people have this in their basket. This is exciting for me. So once you've bought your song, if you feel like this isn't quite enough, I need to explain to this person why exactly I've sent them this song, or I have something more to say, or I want Erin and or Maureen's faces as part of this video, and I didn't buy a song that they're doing, and I want them to say the name of the person I'm sending this to and my special message to that person. You can use us as your puppets by buying a custom video greeting. Please, please, please put lots of info in this personalization section. We need to know exactly what it is you want. We need to know how to say the person's name. Here is where you put the info. We need to know basically exactly what you want on this video greeting. Or if you get the custom e-card version, which is just visual, dear Maureen, this is from Erin. I guess you could put dear so-and-so and then lie about who it's from. That would be wild. Okay, Maureen. I promise to say it naturally like that. Do your best. If we're not sure, we will probably get in touch. What happens is we will create the little video greeting, the custom greeting or the custom graphic card, and upload it to Etsy. You'll get a notification as soon as it's ready. You've got to give us a couple days on this. We all have 100 jobs. But let us know what you want. Give us a few days. You should get an automatic notification from Etsy, an email from Etsy saying that your download is ready. So watch your spam filter, I would say, just in case. If you haven't received emails from Etsy regularly in the past, if you haven't been shopping there a bunch, I would make sure that you watch that spam filter and make sure you get your custom greeting. We haven't had a problem so far. I'm just paranoid. This is a graphic. Yes, it is. So this is the custom e-card. So this is one where it's going to look just like the download that you get that you send to the person with the little play button, but instead it says your message on there. And so you're going to type in this little description, personalization field what you want it to say. We're going to copy and paste that straight onto the graphic. So take care with this one. Be careful. We can't, it's kind of like when you buy a sign, we can't be expected to know that you made a typo. Please be cautious with this one. So you're going to get, same thing, once we get a chance to make your custom graphic, you're going to get an email from Etsy that says your download is available. And then you'll be able to send both off to your, I was about to say target, but I guess it depends on the song, your recipient, your intended recipient.
Erin, I have a question. Oh,
yes.
No, I just need to laugh about Target. We should have put that in our copy.
Oh, no, we shouldn't have. Skylar, what's your question? Please save me.
Oh my gosh. Okay, gladly. I'm wondering, when folks go through the process of purchasing one of these musical greetings, could they put in the email of the person they want to send it to, or is it going to come to them and then they send it?
It comes to them. It comes to them because it's not an e-greetings site. It has to go through them because they're the person whose contact is like tied in with their payment method and all of that kind of thing. So how this works is that you get the email saying you bought your song. There's nowhere for you to put in, you know, this is for joebob@gmail.com. Do not email that address. I just made it up. Probably somebody has that address. Don't email that. But you get the thing and then you can forward it to whoever the heck you want. That's absolutely fine. We just ask that you not share the direct link and instead go use the little greeting so that people know that it came through this fundraiser and that you supported this cause, well, pair of causes. Does that answer that question?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Quickly. I think you've covered just about everything. So that's awesome.
I can't remember if we said this or not, so I'll say it again just in case. When you click on whichever one you want to buy, You Are My Sunshine, you will immediately get these 2 PDFs. Erin, I think you did already say this, but one of the PDFs is a set of instructions if this hasn't been clear. So it tells you exactly what you're getting, and you're just emailing a file to whoever you want to be emailing it to, who you purchased it for. I was also hovering around the little spot that said message Essential Opera. You can always get in touch if it's confusing or hasn't worked properly, right through the Etsy site, or of course on social media where you might be seeing this particular video.
For sure, or email us, or you know, whatever method works best for you. That's another reason why I kind of bullied Maureen into using Etsy as a platform I was familiar with, is that I've had many conversations with sellers on Etsy about things. And so I know that those messages usually work okay. They've had some trouble with some spam recently, and they've done some pretty good stuff about like categorizing things in your message inbox so you can kind of tell. We got quite a few when we first opened our shop before we even had any items, and it was like, that seems sketchy. And then they all went away, which I love for us. So yeah, you can message us right on there, which I think probably also attaches it to the item you're looking at. So if you have a question about a specific song, because you're there on Etsy looking at Habanera from Carmen or something, you have a question, you can write the message right from the item listing. And I think that will make it really obvious to us what you were looking at. Or you could just ask a general question there or on social media. It should get to us pretty quickly. That said, we are humans with lives and jobs. So if you don't hear instantaneously, it's because we're not AI robots directly hooked up to the net via a nape of neck jack. So give us a second, but we will get back to you as fast as we possibly can. Well, I guess I'm not. I shouldn't make claims for anybody. Maureen's checking herself for jackports. How's it going?
It's going great.
What a way this would be to discover that you and your friend are robots. This would be upsetting.
Really though.
I'm glad we're not live.
Me too.
The screen would fuzz out. We would be taken offline instantaneously. Oh no, they found out. They found out the truth. You thought this was just a fundraiser video, but it's actually the start of a new immersive horror film.
Lord.
I'm shutting up now.
Another part that I segueing away from this vibe.
Yes, please do. Please,
Another
again, save me.
Another thing that I really love about this fundraising project is that you have made it so that a portion of the funds raised is going towards the NS Youth Project, which is a group that I've been familiar with for at least a decade, I think. And they do some amazing work there. And I believe they're still functioning out of Halifax, Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
And they do some amazing work across the whole province and even into New Brunswick. Sometimes they will be helping queer folks, particularly youth in New Brunswick. So I think that's great that you guys are helping to support them out as well.
It seems like a good time for that particular cause. And we wanted to do something, since the fundraiser is extremely accessible to anyone, anywhere, and the artists involved are all over the place. We wanted to do one thing that felt a little bit more local and targeted. So we're not holding an in-person local event, but hopefully we get to kick back a little bit to the good folks at the Youth Project. And so we're looking forward to being able to do that as long as we get lots and lots of sales of song greetings.
Yay. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me and talk about your fundraiser. I'm so glad that Fiona could join us too. It was so nice to hear all she had to say. Yeah, I feel like I have a really good idea um, of what to expect from this project, but also how I can perhaps send a little something cute or sexy to someone special in my life. So I'm excited to hear and see a little bit more about these songs. And just thank you so much. This sounds awesome.
Skylar.
Yeah, this was
Really
this was
appreciate
wonderful.
you.
I appreciate
Awesome.
y'all too.